Okay. Now, I am going to be a little controversial here for many people in Brisbane and Adelaide who hate those Lime scooters. Those Lime scooters, which basically are little sort of... They're all over the place. You walk up with an app, you take a photo, and then you can ride it wherever you want, and you can park it essentially wherever you want. You've got to wear a helmet in some states, some are not. Most don't end up having a helmet with them. Something terrible happened in Brisbane, though, yesterday, which is that a man has died after he fell off one of these electric scooters. Now, I've got to say, in Adelaide, there didn't seem to be as many around the absolute CBD. It was the best way for me to get from my hotel in the CBD to the supercars track. It was awesome. Myself and my mate Dan smoking, riding these things. It was really cool. I even had a satchel on at one point in time where I carrying all my... I was my hipster self.
You had a man bag as well.
In Brisbane, I did the same thing where, you know, every night after the show, get back to the hotel, hop onto the scooter, go around to the pie shop, you know, have a little look around the Brisbane River, come back up. But then in the middle of the day, you can see the looks on people's faces that they hate these things. They're travelling up to 20 k's an hour, darting in and around people that are pedestrians who quite obviously are like, well, hang on, mate. The same way, you know, the courier bikes send people a little bit crazy. So I want to ask you all about these things. In Sydney, have they come knocking on Sydney's door, and what is Sydney's position about these clock-on, clock-off scooters?
They've definitely come knocking on my door, and we've had a huge range of, I guess, disruptive transport modes, you know, from electric scooters, electric bikes, through to share bikes, several brands. You know, we've all seen the kind of pictures of bikes in trees and left everywhere. So I think it's going to be... These are huge challenges for cities, mainly because in New South Wales, actually, councils don't have the power to regulate them. We've very recently been awarded the power to regulate share bikes, but in very particular circumstances. But the electric ones are classed mostly as vehicles, and therefore they're regulated by the state. And these things, as we all know, they tend to pop up overnight. I mean, Lime just kind of appeared on the streets, you know, with vehicles and helmets everywhere, and governments are often just left really scrambling. And then, of course, people call the council, because they call the council for everything first. And so we have to work really closely with the state government to try and figure out how they're going to be safe and effective and regulate them. On the one hand, I think it's interesting to look at these different forms of transport. On the other hand, though, we've been doing a great big public consultation in the City of Sydney about our future 2050 strategy, and it's been really interesting for me to hear people's view about these and about drones. So I thought people would be interested in drones. Almost universally in Sydney, in every suburb, whenever we ask people about drones, they say, I hate them.
Unless they want to sell their house, and then they'll pay for the drone to film it.
You know, we don't want them in our cities. They're a breach of privacy. I've been really fascinated to see how averse people are to some of these kinds of technologies that in the city we're looking at options for what the future of our city will be like. So I'm not sure that communities are necessarily going to continue to accept them. Like you, they might use them once or twice for the novelty.
If I lived in the absolute city or close to it, this would probably be one of the ways I'd get around. I don't think it quite works in Sydney because of the hills. Look, it is a hillier capital city than other parts of the country, and I know sort of Brisbane has its plenty of undulating places, but when you're a fat bloke going up a hill, it doesn't quite work so well, but I was able to get around Brisbane. Malcolm, what do you think of these things? I know every time I listen to Mark Braybrook on 4BC, people are constantly going nuts about how bad these things are, and I could see it on people's faces. Did it make me no stop? No.
Well, it is a tragedy that that man lost his life, but my wife the other day told me about, she came home from working downtown, and she said that she was almost barreled by 3 young fellas on Lime scooters, and 2 of them went around a post one way and the other one went the other way, and she just happened to stop, otherwise she would have been cleaned up and really seriously injured. And, you know, we've spent, in the early days of the motor vehicle, we had people walking in front of the car with a flag, warning of the vehicle, and then we realised that we better separate pedestrians from wheeled vehicles and motorised vehicles, and now we're moving them back together again. I don't think there's a place for it, but it is dangerous.
To me, it's pretty obvious they should just go on the bike lane. I mean, if cities have gone to the trouble of establishing the bike lane, these things should live in and around the bike lanes. What do you reckon?
Oh, yeah, I agree with you, Paul, but, I mean, I enjoy riding my, you know, road bike in different spaces like that, and I find with the scooters, with the way they operate, when you've got pedestrians with dogs, a bike line, you know, you often find pedestrians in the bike lane, plus scooters, plus prams, plus everything else. I mean, the city of Canberra does a lot of good work around this sort of stuff. Where if you look at the
They do.
the basin plan that they have around Lake Burley Griffin, but I tell you what, it can be like you know, a day at Bathurst trying to avoid everybody clicking in and out. Now, if you're on a bike, and with my bike you have to click in and click out.
Yeah, of course.
You know, it's actually quite frightening when you have one of these scooters pull out in front of you, because you can't necessarily stop quickly and you are then locked into a bike. So I think even when you have cities like Canberra, which is the ACT government, and they've got full jurisdiction, there's still a lot of challenges, let alone Sydney. And I'd hate, with the way Sydney is at the moment, with, you know, a light rail not yet quite delivered, that we would be even having these discussions. Once, you know, George Street is back open, then maybe we can have that. But at the same token, the amount of pedestrian traffic in Sydney, sometimes it's taking your life into your own hands just by
and
walking
literally
down
there have
Pitt
been
Street.
a very significant number of deaths. But that said, put your phone down and look up.